What if you had a step-by-step formula to build a perfect world? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating sermon from New Year's Day 1978 by Sun Myung Moon. It claims to have exactly that, a blueprint for what it calls the kingdom of God on earth. So, the sermon kicks off with a really big question. If God is supposed to be the ultimate sovereign, with all of us as his citizens, then why does the world look like, well, this? This question really sets the whole stage for the problem this text is trying to solve. And boom, here's the diagnosis right out of the gate. This direct quote argues that no existing institution, not our governments, not even our churches, is truly in sync with God's will. They're all seen as fractured by self-interest, which means God can't really work through them.
So this first part of the sermon really hammers on this idea of a world that's kind of disconnected from God. And if you can't start with a whole nation, or even a church to build something ideal, where on earth do you begin? The text argues that to build something perfect, you have to start much, much smaller.
You can see the logic here, right? It just kind of cascades downwards. The sermon says that if nations are flawed and churches are flawed, then of course the families that make them up must be flawed too. So the conclusion is that God has to narrow the search all the way down to one single perfect unit, one family, or maybe even just one individual to act as the real starting point.
Okay, so if the starting point is one perfect person, how does that build into a solution for the whole world? This is where the sermon proposes its core formula, this belief that the entire universe is actually built on one single type of relationship.
The sermon calls this the trunk line of the universe. A pretty powerful image, right? And here's the key claim. This specific relationship, the love between a father and a son, isn't just a human thing. No, it's presented as the core principle that governs all of existence, starting with the connection between God and humanity. But there's a catch, a prerequisite, you could say. To even be a part of this core relationship, the text says a person has to be born into God's own lineage. It uses this analogy that just like parents love their own children, we have to be part of God's direct bloodline to truly love and be loved by him. This then lays out a super clear, hierarchical path. It's a total bottom-up approach. You start by perfecting the individual. That then allows for the perfection of the family. That perfected family becomes the model for a perfected nation, which then, finally, leads to a perfected world. So, let's zoom in on that crucial first step. Before you can build anything bigger, the individual has to achieve a state of internal perfection. And according to the sermon, this means winning a fundamental battle that's raging inside every single one of us. And this internal conflict is absolutely central to the whole idea. On one side, you have the true mind, which is described as the unchanging part of us that seeks God. On the other side, the body, the part that's always changing and just wants to sleep and eat. According to the text, these two are naturally at war. So the big question is, how to resolve this war? Well, the solution offered is the total subjugation of the body. Through religious discipline and sacrifice, like fasting, the body's desires are reduced to a complete zero, which allows the mind to take full control and finally achieve unity. Once an individual achieves this internal unity, they can form the foundational unit of the kingdom. This is called the heavenly four positions. It's basically a perfect family structure where God, the parents, and the children are all in complete harmony, creating the very first cell of a heavenly society right here on earth. From that single, perfected family unit, the formula then expands outward. The very same principles that govern the individual and the family are applied to the nation and eventually the entire world. But, and this is a big but, this requires a central figure to guide the whole process. The text is crystal clear that a Messiah figure is an absolute necessity for this plan to work. This figure is meant to act as the parent to all of humanity, fulfilling that father role from the core relationship, but on a global scale, uniting every person as one family under God. This expansion is also mirrored in 3 levels of loyalty. First, you're a pious son to your parents. Second, you become a patriot to your national leader. And finally, you become a saint, loyal to God on a universal level. The Messiah figure is presented as the one who embodies all 3 and makes them possible. So when you map it out like this, you can really see the pattern. That single father-son relationship is the consistent formula at every single level. Parents are the center of the family, the sovereign or Messiah is the center of the nation, and God and the Messiah are the center of the world. It's the same structure,
just getting bigger.
And then the sermon makes this huge shift from theory to practice. This isn't just some abstract formula. It's presented as an urgent, direct call to action for the audience listening back in 1978. And achieving this perfection, well, it requires a very specific kind of effort.
The text describes what it calls a cosmic law of give and take. The idea is that if you give horizontally, serving others, offering your love and your life, the universe will automatically reimburse you vertically. By making yourself a minus through selfless service, you become a bigger plus, and God's love rushes in to fill that vacuum. And this wasn't just a general principle, it was a specific mission. Followers were told to win over America, and specifically New York City, through relentless, sincere service. The belief was that this genuine giving would eventually cause the city and the nation to recognize its value and bow down. And the year itself was declared profoundly significant. For the followers hearing this, 1978, with the number 8 symbolizing a new start, wasn't just another year. It was announced as the gigantic new beginning for this entire mission to save America and the world.
The sermon ends with an incredibly high-stakes choice for its listeners. They were told they could either become a living sacrifice to save the youth of America who are described as dying, or if they chose an easier path for themselves, they would risk becoming an adversary of God. Wow. So when you step back, what we have is this detailed blueprint for a perfect world. It's a vision of total harmony, built by applying one single formula, the father-son relationship, to every level of society, all guided by a central messianic figure. This leaves us with a really big question to think about. What are the implications of a world where total unity is the ultimate goal?